he is built with devotion in mind. Now, he was expecting green-white devotion. This is a green-red devotion, but on Dalton Martin's side, it's the same general strategy.
And this is a card that I thought was going to be poised for a bit of an uptick here in Butcher of the Horde. I think this is a very good threat against green devotion lists, particularly the green-white builds, because they don't kill things. And the biggest problem with Butcher of the Horde is, you know, Hero's Downfall, Stoke the Flames, it just dies a lot. But when you're playing in matchups that don't have kill spells, Butcher of the Horde is an incredibly efficient threat. Well,
Dalton has his good draw, and he has turn 1 Elvish Mystic on the play, but it's going to be Thought Seized by Rudy, and we see Dalton's hand. He has a second land, a Sylvan Caryatid, a Eidolon of Blossoms, Pelucranos World Eater, and Reclamation Sage. And Rudy will go ahead and take care of the 5/5 Hydra. So we go back over to Dalton.
That's one of those spots where I think if Rudy has Crackling Doom, he goes ahead and takes the Eidolon, but if he has no kill spell available for the Pelucranos, he just has to take it. It's too big.
Yeah, Sylvan Caryatid, the next play for Dalton. He'll swing in for one with Elvish Mystic. Has ramped up to 4 mana. Now, as we saw last, he did not have a third land. So if Rudy can take care of any of these mana creatures, there's a chance he can keep Dalton off that Eidolon.
And that's really important because Eidolon of the Blossoms is just very good to have ahead of schedule no matter what. And particularly against a deck like Rudy where his strategy is just remove things. So 2-for-1s are very important on Dalton's side of the table.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have the removal spell right now. It's going to be Seeker of the Way on Rudy's side. And nonetheless, Dalton does draw his third land. It's Wooded Foothills. So there we see the Foothills there. And we assume maybe an Eidolon.
Well, I believe that Dalton has also picked up a copy of Xenagos. So there's a couple different ways he can go with Eidolon this turn. Just set up shot a little bit. He can play Xenagos, make a token, and leave Sylvan Caryatid and the token back on defense, which probably checks the Seeker of the Way. A little bit riskier because then one removal spell requires a chump block or a loss of Xenagos. So on the balance, I think I prefer playing the Eidolon this turn, but a couple options for Dalton.
Yeah, we'll see which one he goes with. I suppose he has the option to make Xenagos and just leave back the Satyr token as well. You're right, Xenagos the Reveler, that's going to be the play for Dalton. He'll make a Satyr. We'll see if it's on attack duty or blocks.
So my critique of this line of play from Dalton's side is that if Rudy has a way to kill a token, which seems realistic, Seeker is now a 3/3. So now you're looking at chump blocking with the Caryatid or losing the Xenagos. I feel like if he plays the Eidolon, he has a little bit more of a cushion where the Seeker of the Way matters a bit less.
Well, he'll swing with the Satyrs. That'll put Rudy down to 13. Rudy actually just with a Caves of Coilos and a Battlefield Forge has dealt a lot of damage to himself this game. See here now fetching down to 12.
And I think there's more of an argument for, trying to push the fact that Rudy's dealt a lot of damage to himself. If his threat wasn't Seeker of the Way, if Rudy has a spell here, he makes it all back, right back.
Right, something like Crackling Doom for the Satyr token takes care of 2 creatures on this board.
Yep. Yeah.
That said, he's not done taking damage off his own lands. Looks like he has shuffled a Crackling Doom to the front of his hand. And he'll go ahead and play that one pre-combat, takes care of the Satyr. I'm a little curious he didn't wait to attack first. I guess all the roads lead to the same spot. This way Dalton knows that Rudy's committed to the instant.
I think that I would have preferred just to attack the Xenagos first because Dalton might say no blocks hoping that Rudy doesn't have a spell.
Right.
And then you get the Xenagos off the table.
In this case, he gets the Satyr out, the Caryatid off the table. Rudy does gain 3.
Dalton's almost certainly blocking there no matter what, but there's a small percentage chance that Rudy may be able to get the Xenagos for free there.
Exactly. But he didn't gain as much. He did have to pay 2 to cast that, so he just gained 1 when all was said and done. So back over to Dalton. He does get to make another Satyr, so not that expensive of a turn there for Dalton. And he'll get Eidolon of Blossoms as well.
All right, this is kind of why I didn't like deploying the Xenagos a couple turns ago, is Dalton was just not in a position to really protect the Xenagos, and he's looking at having to give it up while it's generated relatively little, or chump blocking for the rest of the game. Neither of these are great spots to be in.
Yeah, it does put pressure on Rudy over to keep playing instants if he wants to attack that Xenagos. So we get back over to Rudy. He does play a 4th land, has a Sorin in hand. Could swing that. Could play plus and swing, I suppose. See what other plays he has. I think Outpost Siege among his options here. The life gain off the Seeker, though, just seems great right now.
Yeah. The problem with the play of Sorin is that Dalton can double block
Right, and it will kill the Seeker. I think Rudy's going to make that play. At least this way, if Dalton goes for the double block, he'll lose both his creatures. He plus to the Sorin, so now Seeker is a 4/3 after Prowess.
But I don't even know if Rudy can really offer up an attack here because Dalton can go double block, untap, make a token. You can also do this where he just chump blocks and then takes care of the Sorin.
Right, he does have 5 power in play right now, so he can just knock Sorin off the board. So the Satyr blocked away, Rudy gained 4. And yeah, I do agree here. He can just get rid of Sorin. Rudy with not that many options. His remaining hands looks like he has Outpost Siege, Soulfire Grandmaster, and one other red spell.
Yeah, that's a tough turn for Rudy there last turn. I think he may have been better served just playing Outpost Siege and attacking, or either attacking Xenagos or just saying go.
Yeah, so Dalton, 5 damage, takes care of Sorin, and then more mana onto the board. It's Elvish Mystic and Voyaging Satyr. Tons of creatures on Dalton's side, and this unanswered Xenagos is becoming problematic.
And Dalton's done a very good job of protecting it. Had to offer up some chump blocks in a couple spots and take some risks, but it has done quite a bit.
Goblin Rabblemaster for Rudy. It makes a Goblin. Both creatures, both Seeker and the Goblin token will swing in at Xenagos. Dalton gets a free block on the Goblin, but that will send Xenagos down to 1.
Well, he may want to put something in front of the Seeker, respecting the possibility of a spell.
That's actually very interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting from Rudy. And he just wants to keep the Xenagos at all costs, so he puts the 1/2 in front of the Goblin token, puts his Elvish Mystic in front of Seeker, then Rudy post-combat plays a Soulfire Grandmaster.
Yeah, just trying to be as safe as possible here.
Yeah. I like the bluff there from Rudy. If Dalton, with perfect information, Dalton probably double blocks the Seeker of the way.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I don't think there's a doubt about it, but it's a very risky
Absolutely.
double block.
And yeah, a call he could not afford to make. Temple from Dalton scries to the bottom, another Satyr off of Xenagos. And thanks to that lifelink on cards like Seeker of the Way, Rudy's actually stayed at a healthy 14 life despite operating off so many pain lands here.
Right, and that's the problem with taking sort of this, beat down position against Mardu mid-range in this matchup is Rudy has just gained a fair bit of life sort of incidentally as time has gone on here. Even with a bunch of pain lands in play, his life total is still pretty positive.
Yeah, and a very aggressive line from Rudy. He'll play Outpost Siege, but he'll name dragons. That should help with these Goblin tokens to realize a lot of value, and then he'll go ahead and swing the team.
I mean, this is a commitment to getting Xenagos off the table and playing draw step to draw step. It's a very aggressive line of play here, but this almost assures that Xenagos gets off the table, if not this turn, then next.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff is going to trade here. I can't imagine Xenagos lives through the turn.
Yeah.
So walk it through. Voyaging Satyr in front of a Goblin token. The 2 Satyrs, they'll jump in front of Rabblemaster and Soulfire Grandmaster. So a lot of damage there. Or a lot of commitment, rather. He's getting rid of Rabblemaster and Soulfire to take Xenagos off the table. But 3 of Rudy's creatures die, so the Outpost Siege... Well, actually, sorry, the 3 damage from Seeker takes care of Xenagos. He gets 3 extra damage off the Outpost Siege. And that'll go ahead and finish off the Voyaging Satyr and kill Eidolon of Blossoms.
There's no guarantee Rudy wins from this spot because there's a lot of huge draws in the Green-Red Devotion deck, but
sure,
he is in advantage state right now.
And it's Reclamation Sage, so as we knew from the beginning in Dalton's hand. Rudy, to be fair, on why I think he chooses dragons there, he knew about Reclamation Sage from that turn 1 Thoughtseize.
Right, it's just gone on the way out, so that's his one spot to get in some action with it.
Right, and Rudy actually did have a follow-up Rabblemaster. So plays it, swings in 4/3, and Reclamation Sage will trade away with Seeker of the Way. And I have to say, I really like the way that Rudy's managed his resources this game. Even if you go back to the Sorin, which really just bought him time, he's been able to trade off with Dalton's board.
Yeah. Although now,
yeah, this is a haymaker.
This is the problem with trying to play too slow of a game against Green Red Devotion or any Green Devotion deck. There's just a lot of huge draws.
Yeah, when your opponent's playing things like 4 Pelucranos, 4 Whisperwood Elemental, 2 Genesis Hydra, 2 Ugin, it's only a matter of time until they draw some very large card.
So it's part of the reason that I think that if you're going to try to approach these Green Devotion lists right now, if you're going to try to beat them, it has to involve a lot of cheap removal and a good curve, because going long, even if you kill most of their mana creatures, they just end up drawing a Pelucranos or a Whisperwood Elemental, and now all your work's undone.
Yeah. What I do like is what the early Xenagos on Dalton's side did this game, is one of the lines that Rudy can take with Sorin is he can just protect a Sorin and build his way up toward an emblem. But because of the steady stream of threats of the Xenagos, it never really felt like that was a line that Rudy had available to him.
Right.
You see there an attack with Goblin Rabblemaster and friends. the Manifest trades with Rabblemaster, and now Whisperwood Elemental really looks to run away with the game.
Rudy doesn't have a real way to catch up from this spot unless he draws Crackling Doom pronto.
Yeah, it's about one turn to get that kill spell. Draw for the turn. It's another copy of Goblin Rabblemaster. Whisperwood continues to make 2/2s. And this may be it for game one. We will see here. Back over to Dalton. And I mean, Whisperwood Elemental is so powerful in these board states. It feels like Dalton doesn't even need to draw more cards at this point.
No.
Like,
I mean, Whisperwood's better than a draw step.
Yeah,
and he still gets a draw step.
Another Manifest from the Elemental. They start to swing in. Rudy down to 12. He does have Butcher of the Horde. This is one of his ways to get out of this bind.
Yes, that's a huge draw here for Rudy because he's going to be able to give haste and lifelink.
And he's going to go all three abilities. Yep. Haste, lifelink, vigilance, everything. And this is one of the reasons you said you liked the Mardu deck.
Yeah, Butcher of the Horde seems like a great card for this weekend. It's just very, very potent.
Yeah, swings in. So Dalton's down to 9. Rudy up to 16 off that lifelink. And Dalton end step unmorphs the Manifest. It was another Whisperwood Elemental. This is a ton of damage. Rudy's going to try to race it. We'll see if he's able to.
Yeah, Rudy went ahead and sacked all the tokens because they were going to have to attack anyway, so you might as well just get in with everything.
And here comes a full attack. Both Whisperwoods plus the Manifest. We'll see if Rabblemaster chumps. It seems like it's actually more life gain to not chump with Rabblemaster because the Goblin he makes can give Butcher lifelink.
Yeah, it's...
So it's actually better economy to just leave him there.
I think so, too.
We'll see if Rudy takes the full 10. Yeah, doesn't even want to risk killing the Manifest. Knows he can't lose Butcher. And you see 2 Manifests on the end step for Dalton. One of them actually we got to see was a third Whisperwood Elemental. Rudy's draw, Caves of Koilos. It looks like he just has lands in his hand. 3 of them. Or rather 2. Yeah, he is. So what you see is what you get here. It's going to be a Goblin that's going to give Butcher what I can only assume is lifelink. Or no, it's going to be Vigilance.
Yeah, he's going to just have to... I think his plan is Goblin Rabblemaster goes in front of something big.
Then Butcher gets lifelink.
Butcher the Horde goes in front of something small.
And gets
lifelink. Lifelink. And then Rudy has lethal coming across.
Yep, unmorph of Boon Satyr. And Whisperwood on end step for Dalton. Just a huge amount of power on the board.
Yeah, at this point, I don't think Rudy can block out. I think there's just too much.
Yeah.
Because there's 4 different 4-power creatures, and Rudy...
20 coming across, so at least 12 gets unblocked. Even if he gains 5, that's only 11.
Right, I don't think he can survive from here.
Yeah, Rudy's going to just double check. Yeah, if he blocks, sacks to give lifelink. That's still lethal.
Yeah, Dalton can also sacrifice the Whisperwood that the Butcher's in front of right now to prevent the lifelink. He's got a lot of ways to manage this.
And there... Now, if you go back to that turn where Dalton had swung with a face-down Manifest, if Rudy blocks that Manifest, I almost feel like that changes the number there.
I think that if I was in Rudy's spot there, I would have blocked because it's just a blind card, and if it's
a 4-power, you're probably just dead to it.
Right. If it's something big, you're in a ton of trouble anyway, and if it's something small, you save 2 damage that turn and 2 damage forever because the token's no longer in play. So I think the turn that Rudy said no blocks with the Butcher, I probably would have gone ahead, put it in front of the Manifest token, run the risk that it's something big down there, but there's only so many cards it could be, and he saves a lot of damage as a result.
Well, Rudy down a game, but let me tell you, he's got some good sideboard options. Before we get to that, though, I want to talk a little bit about one of the ebooks that we have coming out, or rather, a book that we're re-releasing. This is Next Level Deck Building. It's the book by Patrick Chapin. It was an ebook, but it's going to be available soon in paperback form.
And I know that there's a lot of people out there that are loath to use the e-reader because it doesn't feel right for them to be holding a tablet or it messes with their eyes or whatever.
I'm one of those people.
Happy to finally release this on paperbook, an incredibly well-received book from a Pro Tour champion, Hall of Famer, 2-time Worlds runner-up, Patrick Chapin, the innovator. This is the most complete deck that you can possibly have, or the most, book you can have for deck building. Combo, aggro, control, mid-range, philosophies, 20 years of Magic history. It's all contained here and will be soon available on paperback.
Yeah, someone I've had the chance to read this last year in ebook form would gladly have it in paperback. Chapin, in the Hall of Fame, and I would say one of the strongest theoretical players in at any point in this game's history.
And has built influential decks across every spectrum of Magic, from beatdown decks to control, mid-range, combo decks. He's built them all across a very long span of time. So very, very, very influential.
All right, going to sideboards. One thing that we saw in that match is that green-red Devotion's ability to go wide is problematic for the Mardu deck once they start making a lot of creatures. It can be really difficult to deal with. And walk us through this Rudy sideboard, and there's a pretty good one in here.
A copy of Thoughtseize, 2 copies of Archfiend of Depravity. We'll get into that in a little bit.
Right.
And then Hostilities, 2 Erase, 2 Arc Lightning, 3 Storm Breath Dragon, a Sarkhan the Dragon Speaker, a Valorous Stance, 2 copies of Mastery of the Unseen. I like the Valorous Stance, the Thoughtseize, and the End Hostilities. I think 2 copies of Arc Lightning are fine here as well. With the 2 copies of Archfiend of Depravity, this is another card people have identified as potentially being a swing card against these green Devotion decks. Again, they're not very good at killing cards. They're not very good at killing creatures. And if Archfiend stays in play unchecked, it undoes all the work that things like Genesis Hydra, Whisperwood Elemental, Mastery of the Unseen, it undoes all of that.
Well, one of the things that Rudy had talked about with the card is that he did not particularly like his green Devotion matchup. So he said he really wanted a card in the sideboard that was just excellent for it, rather than just having a traditional sideboard. And he wasn't sure that Archfiend was going to be used in any matchup outside of green Devotion. So it's got a lot of weight to carry, and hopefully we'll see it do just that.
Right. It's a card that a lot of people have been talking about. It makes sense to me as being good here. I think it's probably less potent against green-red Devotion because it's more likely they're going to be able to kill it with something like Critter's Claws, but still, if it goes unchecked, it's very hard for green Devotion to execute his game plan.
Yeah, over on Dalton's side, there is some difficulty with flyers that we saw there, and we'll see if he has some sort of answer to it. He does have, in his sideboard, I'll go through some of the cards here, Nylea, God of the Hunt, Bow of Nylea, Arbor Colossus, Cetessan Tactics, Mistcutter Hydra, Nissa Worldwaker, Hornet Queen, Nylea's Disciple, and Reclamation Sage. A lot of things with some utility here. My guess is that he wants to answer flyers, so we're going to see things like Arbor Colossus, Hornet Queen, even possibly in the matchup.
I think Hornet Queen is great in this matchup. Arbor Colossus still has the problem of it just dies to Crackling Doom or some other terror effect, whereas Hornet Queen is much more problematic for Rudy to slog through. And because I think his best threat in the matchup is Butcher the Horde, I would definitely want to have access to those kind of anti-flyer cards. I think the additional copy of Reclamation Sage has got one in the main deck and one on the sideboard. Totally reasonable bringing in a deck that probably has Outpost Siege, has Outpost Siege, and probably has Chain of the Rocks as well.
And now, how do you feel about a card like Cetessan Tactics in this matchup?
I think that Rudy's game plan is likely to be kill all your stuff. And I don't like Cetessan Tactics in matches where the opponent's plan is kill all your stuff.
And I do know, having talked with Rudy about this, there's a chance he brings in additional flyers like Storm Breath Dragon for the matchup, just because he feels that they're really well positioned against Devotion.
Trying to attack on the ground is really problematic, and Xenagos is a very strong incentive to put in flyers. 1, because you want to be able to kill Xenagos, and 2, because the ground is liable to get locked up.
Oh yeah, that's one of the cornerstones of the green Devotion strategy, is just attacking on the ground through a lot of these cards. Your Coursers, your Caryatids, your Xenagoses, that can just be a miserable time.
Yeah, and it took Rudy a really long time and a lot of resources to be able to slog through basically just Xenagos and mana creatures. It's not like Dalton ever got to any of his real big stuff.
Yeah, when you look at Dalton's draw, it really was just some mana creatures, a Xenagos, then he waited around for a while and eventually played a Whisperwood. It didn't seem like an overly impressive draw, but yet it did a lot of work against what I thought was one of the more powerful draws out of Rudy's deck.
Yep, Rudy's draw was fine. I mean,
yeah,
it was, removal spells. He had a Thoughtseize.
2-drop Crackling Doom, Outpost Siege, Sorin. And Thoughtseize. That's great.
It was really the Reclamation Sage, I think, that mucked up Rudy's draw there, because it wasn't quite good enough to take with the Thoughtseize, given that Pelucranos and Eidolon was in the opponent's hand. But he could never really get to Outpost Siege, and I think that would have allowed him to play this defend myself, kill your
Put
stuff.
siege on cons, then, not dragons.
Slowly grind you out of the game, but because of the Reclamation Sage, he just had to cash it in for one turn, and at that point he's playing draw step to draw step with Dalton, and Dalton's got much bigger hits in his deck at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. On game 2 right now, Dalton Martin getting the first game. It looks like Dalton is on 6, but they are both keeping. We're underway here. Rudy starting out with the Temple. We do see both Thoughtseize and Sorin in his hand. He has a, I believe, Valorous Stance as well. We'll see what Dalton's working with. Dalton was not thrilled with the keep, and we get to see why. Genesis Hydra, Pelucranos, Courser, Crater's Claws, Nykthos.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty straightforward. Take Courser, strand Dalton with a hand that can't do anything.
Yeah, this hand was really, I think Dalton was very much hoping here to keep the Courser and hit it on turn 3 and go from there.
For a mulligan, this is a totally fine hand. I don't think Dalton should have gone to 5 cards here by any stretch.
It has a game plan.
The Thoughtseize is really bad news.
Thoughtseize is so potent, and I mean, I hate putting it this way, so potent against mulligan to 6 mulligans. You know,
well, definitely, it's definitely good against decks that have a lot of moving parts, where you really need your 1 accelerator or you really need your 1 payoff card.
Yeah. See here, looks like he's gonna go ahead and take not Courser, which means he has the kill spell for it. Yeah, it'll be Pelucranos. He plays Temple. Yeah, he has Valorous Stance at the ready for the Courser, so I don't think he's that concerned about it.
I still feel like I'd rather just take the Courser out of that hand. It may not ultimately matter all that much.
Dalton does not hit the 3rd land on time. He does hit Elvish Mystic. And for Rudy, it'll just be Sorin on turn 4. He knows Courser's coming next turn. But you're right, because of this, Courser may score a free card this next turn.
Yeah. And, Rudy's hand is, he's got 2 copies of Stormbreath Dragon. He can't cast him just yet. So this game could go on for a while, and that gives Dalton potentially the ability to catch up.
Draw for Dalton with Sylvan Carry added. He's going to go for Courser. Does he get the free card? He does. It's a Forest.
This is pretty bad news for Rudy.
Yeah, I mean, Rudy would have really liked to avoid Dalton getting that extra card off Courser. Rudy will still have to kill Courser. Well, it looks like he has a different game plan. He's just going to take to the air. It's going to be Stormbreath Dragon, plussing it and swinging across for 8. Dalton goes down to 12. But, I mean, we know that Dalton has multiple Crater's Claws in hand. It's not unreasonable that Dalton can deal with this.
Yeah, I mean, he also has the attackers in play right now to just take care of the Sorin as well.
Yeah, you can get rid of the Sorin. He doesn't have the answer to Stormbreath just yet, so he's going to go very low on life points.
With another
but you're right, yeah, it's not bad.
With another Stormbreath in hand, Rudy can probably just close out the game by hitting in the air.
Yeah, and Rudy does have the 2nd Stormbreath. So, yeah, Dalton has to decide between killing Sorin and Dragon. He chooses Dragon. He'll knock Sorin down to 1. Outpost Siege, the draw for Rudy. Here's a 2nd Dragon. Sorin will plus again, but Rudy knows Dalton has the 2nd Crater's Claws.
Yeah, now Sorin's exposed, and it feels like Dalton's right back in this game.
Yeah, Dalton's down to 6. Let's not, I mean, to be fair, Rudy is a red deck, and Dalton's getting pretty low here, but you're right. He's got a shot. We see Pelucranos on top of the deck. Forest into play. Dalton goes back up to 7.
He's got a Hornet.
He has Hornet Queen. That's huge. If he can survive to Hornet Queen, he can take this game. So yeah, 2nd Crater's Claws takes care of Stormbreath Dragon. Courser takes care of Sorin, and it looks like Dalton has stabilized. Well, perhaps Butcher the Horde, the draw for Rudy.
Yeah, Butcher the Horde is a disaster here for Dalton. I don't know if he's going to be able to shore up.
Well, he has to get that land and then just Hornet Queen, right? Well, he already he has Nykthos, so we actually... Nykthos isn't making anything yet.
It's not positive mana just yet.
So Rudy goes for Hordling Outburst. He's going to wait until Dalton draws the card. We'll see if he Valorous Stances. He does not. Dalton does not hit the land, though. So if Dalton had hit that, say their top card, there's an untapped Forest, I feel pretty good about this game for Rudy then. Okay, so it looks like during the draw step, Valorous Stance did happen.
Yeah, with Rudy having an Outpost Siege he can set to Dragons, it still just might be too hard for Dalton to fully stabilize.
That's a lot of damage.
Because if Dalton plays Hornet Queen, then Rudy can go untap, play Outpost Siege, set to Dragons. All right, now work your way through this.
Sure, Genesis Hydra shows 4 cards. Pelucranos is one of them, and Rudy shows Butcher the Horde. So game 2 goes over to Rudy Briksza, but a valiant fight there for Dalton.
He was not out of that game. And, I mean, he mulliganed, he got hit with a Thoughtseize. Multiple copies of Stormbreath Dragon came down for Rudy, but he had a shot there. And to go back, I would have just taken the Courser out of Dalton's hand.
Yeah, to try to keep him. I mean, it didn't seem like, even if Dalton had a chance to make Pelucranos there, it didn't seem like that mattered as much.
I agree.
Rudy gets it. I mean, but what this does show is what Rudy's game plan is. We talked about maybe Rudy will be all kill spells. It seems like Rudy's on the all flyers plan instead.
Well, if you can disrupt the Green Devotion deck enough by killing their mana creatures and making them play a slower game, it's hard for them to weather the storm of things like Butcher the Horde and Stormbreath Dragon. If you're going to go to that kind of plan with 4 and 5 mana flyers, it has to be supplemented by removal spells, because left unchecked, the Green Devotion deck is going to overpower those kind of cards. But if you're able to keep them off balance early on, Butcher the Horde, Stormbreath Dragon, that's a lot for them to handle early.
Yeah, I think there's temptation to not take to not. Going back to that play with the Thoughtseize. I mean, Rudy had the Valorous stance ready. But yeah, I think because the danger was because Rudy knew he was going to be tapping out for things like Sorin and Stormbreath on the next turn. He may not actually have a window to cast the Valorous stance.
It's true. It is true. But the Corsair, that it just feels like Polukranos is so unlikely to matter, especially if Rudy's all in the air pinning mana creatures.
Yeah, 5/5 on the ground's not that great.
Doesn't really matter all that much.
All right, well, they're going to Game 3 here. We talked about the Patrick Chapin book we have coming out, but it is not the only book that we are working on. We also have the Complete Commander Guide. This is by Benny Smith, longtime Star City Games writer all about the kitchen table.
Yeah, stalwart of the Star City Games website since, I believe, the 1990s. Now updated for the Commander 14 product. Benny Smith has been writing for Star City Games for a variety of casual formats for about as long as the website has existed, so he's very well equipped to be writing this book. Again, updated for Commander 2014 and available now on PDF on starcitygames.com/completecommander.
So, going back to Game 3, Dalton will get to be on the play. Game 1, I think the unsung hero to me of it just seemed to be the turn 1 Elvish Mystic start. Even though Dalton didn't have that much payoff for the card, it never felt like Rudy recovered from the fact that Dalton was just ahead basically by 2 mana.
And it's challenging for Rudy's deck to keep that stuff in check, even with cards like Wild Slash in the deck, because he has so many lands that come into play on tap. Excuse me. So he's going to have spots where, Dalton plays a turn 1 Elvish Mystic. Rudy may have a red source of mana and Wild Slash, but if it's something like Temple of Triumph, now Dalton has an opportunity to at least use the elf once. Rudy then has to spend the second turn, probably using Wild Slash to kill the mana creature, and those kind of starts just sort of allow Dalton to leverage his early mana advantage.
Yeah, he does have 2 copies of Arc Lightning in his sideboard as a hedge, so to speak, against these mana creatures.
It's interesting because Arc Lightning is so good against the draws that involve Elvish Mystic and is almost uncastable in a lot of spots that don't. Because Arc Lightning, when they don't have Elvish Mystic, you're basically looking at 3 mana, kill your Voyaging Satyr.
Right.
It doesn't touch Caryatid, and it doesn't touch any of the big stuff. So Arc Lightning is a really risky card to bring in against Green Devotion strategies. Now, if they're also playing with Rattleclaw Mystic, go ahead and knock yourself out. Then it's really good, but otherwise, very dangerous.
You're right. It can nab a Reclamation Sage, I suppose, but that's not really not what you're doing. All right, underway, Game 3. Dalton on the play does not have the turn 1 Elvish Mystic. He does have the turn 2 Caryatid, though. Rudy starting on Nomad Outpost. You do see those come into play tapped lands. Rudy's first lands are Evolving Wilds, Nomad Outpost, and Temple of Triumph. All 3 come into play tapped. When your opponent's on the play with the mana creature, that's a really big liability.
And we know the mana creature's not being touched.
So we'll see Dalton ramping up to 4. We'll see what is the 4-drop. We saw Xenagos do a lot of damage the first game.
This is a great draw for Xenagos, that's for sure.
And it's going to be the Hydra. It's going to be Polukranos.
This can also be good, but it's a little bit easier for Rudy to answer.
Yeah, Rudy can't just say if Rudy has Valorous Stance tap land, then he's out of the woods.
Untapped land, Crackling Doom. It's a little bit easier. Xenagos on this kind of opening
can just be nightmares for
would have been
Rudy's deck.
Really tough for Rudy to beat.
Fetching on Insight, we'll see what Rudy has. His hand is slow, but you'd assume it's powerful then.
And he also might have just cut a lot of his random ground pounders in the matchup too, again, as a concession to the fact that Green Devotion's so good at locking up the ground.
Yeah, cards like Rabblemaster not as strong in this kind of game. We see
on the play, they can be very good. On the draw, I think they're just tough to get going.
Yeah, it does look like Rudy's hands is just on the slower side of things. Multiple copies of Outpost, Siege, Butcher of the Horde. He's going to play a Temple, and it doesn't look like he has another castable card. An aggressive... Yeah, that just seems like a dangerous keep if you don't have a play until turn 4 in this matchup.
Yep. Not even the hope of interacting with a mana creature?
Yeah, Wingmate Rock, the draw from Rudy. Definitely part of this taking to the skies game plan. One of the weaknesses I see, though, is cards like Outpost Siege don't seem like they're... It seems like it's a lot of work for those to matter in this kind of game.
Well, if Rudy has the type of draw of Thought Seizes and removal spells, and he can keep Dalton off of his early action, then Outpost Siege can be very potent.
Right.
But the way this game is shaping up, it's hard to imagine Rudy has the opportunity to take a turn off.
Yeah, Dalton fetching on end step. We may see him just Monstrosity the Pelucranos to get it big enough to swing through the Demon.
I don't mind it. I mean, it really cuts the clock down.
Yeah, it's not going to do it. He's going to leave it as a 5/5. Just not spend the mana. And here swings Pelucranos now. Rudy down to 10. And post-combat, it'll be Courser of Krufix. Does get a free Nykthos. Dalton will go to 19. Yeah, I do think I would have wanted to see the Pelucranos just get big there, just to make it big.
Yeah, it depends exactly on what's going on in Dalton's hand.
Right. I mean, there aren't any... It seems unlikely that it gets to kill creatures in this matchup. It's just a big number.
Well, it looks like it's likely to kill creatures now. I mean, with
that
the
is
Nykthos
true.
in
With
play,
that I guess with the Nykthos in play, it did get a lot better. You see the swing from Rudy for 5, post-combat Wingmate Rock, and it brings its bird along. So 2, 3, 4 flyers. Will that be enough, though? With Nykthos, Dalton's got access to a lot of mana here. And another Nykthos in hand, actually. So goes ahead and swings Pelucranos. Rudy will just throw the bird token in front of it. And right now here comes Nykthos. That's going to be 5, 6, 7 mana. It's going to be Hornet Queen.
And this is one of the swing cards we talked about here. Given Rudy's game plan, Hornet Queen is really hard for him to beat.
Yeah, well, he just doesn't have very many clean answers to this card. Going back to that Archfiend of Depravity, that certainly is, I think, the card he wants here. But outside of that, there's no real sweeper. You know, he could draw an Arc Lightning and take care of some of the insects, but he's going to have to spend 2, 3, maybe 4 cards to get rid of all these.
His sort of sideways answer to Hornet Queen is setting an Outpost Siege to dragons and hoping to just sort of shoot them off incidentally. But
yeah, if he had something like a Hordling Outburst in play, that really could work. He's on all big creatures right now, though, and that's not really the trade he wants to be making.
And now with the Reclamation Sage on the top of Dalton's deck,
yeah, he knows that's not a great plan.
Rudy's in the same spot that he was in game 1, where he basically has to cash in Outpost Siege 1 turn on dragons and go from there.
And we see a swing of all the flyers from Dalton. Rudy will cast Crackling Doom. And I thought we might see Dalton Monstrosity. I don't know, he's 1 mana off, isn't he? Yeah, he can only Monstrosity for 8, not for 9. So he can't actually get rid of the Wingmate Rock. So I'll take care of the Pelucranos. Comes across only for 6 damage, but it also leaves the air open. Rudy could gain a lot of life here.
Well, not only can Rudy gain a lot of life, he can cast Stoke the Flames at the end of the turn and try to set up lethal.
Definitely true. So another replacement Pelucranos for Dalton. We'll see how many green mana sources he now has. So he has 8 green mana in play. He can activate the Nykthos. Yeah, but that's only X equals 3.
Yeah, he can't actually kill anything. This Stoke's going to come across and knock Dalton to 9, and there's 8 points of power in play. So if there's any extra anything.
How about Outpost Siege set to dragons? And then he sacks the Wingmate Rock post-combat. That's 9.
Rudy might just steal this one here.
Puts Dalton down to 9. We'll see if Rudy goes for it. Yeah, Dalton at 9. This should be lethal. I mean, certainly if you say Outpost Siege set to dragons, cast Hordling Outburst, that's more than enough damage.
Right. Yeah, I think Dalton just got a shade too aggressive here. If he just sits back with the Hornets, maybe he, sends in 1 or 2, but doesn't get into a damage race. Then
I think also if in response to that Crackling Doom, he just Monstrosities the Pelucranos that's about to die, he had enough mana with the Hornet Queen. He had 11 mana, so he actually could have just Monstrosity'd and eaten off the Butcher of the Horde.
Right.
And yeah, it does cost him his whole turn and a lot of mana, so it's a pretty big drawback. But I think it saves him from this. It's like the way Dalton loses is that Rudy's playing like a red deck. So when you get the power off the board for the Mardu deck, then this sort of stuff can't happen.
Exactly.
But as you see, here's a swing for 8. And Rudy will gain 2. And this should just be over. Yeah, Rudy's points for his Outpost Siege, points for his creatures, and there you have it. Rudy Briksza taking game 3 off of Dalton Martin.
Well, you definitely got to see Butcher the Horde in action, and I think that if green devotion strategies are on the uptick, you're going to see a lot more of that card because they're just not good at killing creatures, and Butcher the Horde unchecked with your board that's also unchecked is going to be one of the best threats in Standard.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, if Dalton leaves back blockers, I do think that draw of Hordling Outburst from Rudy still gets the game for him. He can play the land, play the Outpost Siege, play Hordling Outburst, and then just sack all those creatures to shoot away all the Hornets and probably win with the same attack.
It depends on how defensive of a position Dalton takes, because if he attacks with nothing,
right.
I think that Rudy's jammed up. I mean, certainly Outpost Siege plus Hordling Outburst can do some work there, but Dalton can probably hold back in such a way that Rudy can cobble together no attacks even with that sequence.
Yeah, I think because Dalton has all this mana and Nykthos, a Pelucranos in play and a second Pelucranos in hand, he can kind of just take the strategy of these Pelucranoses, they're going to Monstrosity and kill your flyers, and I'm going to sit here and kill your things. And, you know, if Pelucranos kills a creature and eats a Crackling Doom, that's a 2-for-1 for Dalton. And I think he can score those all day.